Hello.
I got home earlier than expected. My business trip to Denver was supposed to last until Friday. A big client meeting got scrapped at the last minute, so I hopped the next available flight home Thursday morning without telling anyone. I figured I'd surprise Emily, maybe take her out to dinner or just have a quiet night in. That was the plan, at least. But the moment I stepped into the house, something felt wrong. Not in the catastrophic sense. Nothing broken, no smoke or alarms blaring. But the energy, the vibe was just off. It was subtle, like walking into a room moments after someone's told a lie and everyone's still pretending things are normal. First clue, the shoes. A pair of men's sneakers I didn't recognize were parked by the front door. Brand new Nikes, still bright white, size 11 by the look of them. I'm a size 10 and I don't wear that brand. Emily and I don't host people midweek, let alone unannounced. And if we did have someone over, Emily's the kind of person who would straighten the shoes, not leave them sitting there like that. No jacket. No umbrella. Just shoes. Second clue, the scent. It hit me as I walked down the hallway. Cologne. Expensive stuff, sharp and woody, the kind that lingers. Definitely not mine. I stopped mid-step and took a deeper breath just to be sure. It was faint but unmistakable. Cologne and something else. A faint sweetness like gum or mint. I followed the trail into the kitchen, half expecting to see someone still there. Empty. Then my eyes landed on the coffee mug in the sink. It had a lipstick-stained bold, cherry red. A perfect print right on the rim. Emily doesn't wear that shade. She never has. Her go-to is a neutral pink or nothing at all. I teased her once about how she always wiped her lips before sipping anything so she wouldn't leave a mark. She said lipstick smudges were messy and juvenile. But this one? It stood out like graffiti on clean marble. My heart started doing the slow, uneasy thud in my chest. I set my suitcase down gently, like making noise might shatter the moment. The place was clean, too clean. No clutter on the counters. Her laptop was closed and off. Candles burned in the living room, eucalyptus and sandalwood and soft jazz hummed through the Bluetooth speaker in the corner. It all felt staged. Like I had just missed something. Or someone. And then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of water turning off upstairs. Footsteps padded across the floor. A door creaked. Then, a few moments later, she appeared. Emily. Wrapped in her white bathrobe, towel twisted around her hair, cheeks slightly flushed like she just stepped out of a steamy shower. She paused when she saw me, eyes wide for a split second, then softened like she'd shifted into a script. Mark, she said, voice lilting with faux surprise. You're home early. Client canceled. Took the morning flight. I forced a small smile, watching her carefully. She stepped lightly down the stairs, tightening her robe belt as she moved. You should have told me, she said. I would have made dinner. Or at least picked up something decent. No big deal, I said, glancing back toward the kitchen. Just figured I'd surprise you. She followed my gaze but didn't stop walking. Oh yeah. You just missed Brian, she said, casually brushing past me toward the sink. He dropped by to talk through some restructuring stuff from the office. We had coffee, then he left. Brian. One of her colleagues. Mid-50s, balding, perpetually awkward. I'd met him once at a holiday party. No way he was rocking a fresh pair of size 11s or wearing designer cologne. But she kept going as if that name was enough to explain everything. He wanted your opinion on some new software implementation, she added, rinsing the mug. But I told him you were out of town. Guess he figured he'd ask me instead. She didn't flinch when she touched the lipstick-marked mug. Just rinsed it and set it in the dishwasher like it was any other dish. I nodded slowly. That Brian? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Yeah, she replied, grabbing a towel and drying her hands. Why? No reason, I said. She turned to me then, smiling like nothing was out of place. You okay? You look tense. I forced a laugh. Long flight. Didn't sleep much. Well, you're home now. She walked over, rose up on her toes, and kissed me on the cheek. Her lips were bare. No red. No stain. Want a shower? I can throw together something for dinner. I shook my head. Think I'll just grab a drink. She nodded and disappeared upstairs, humming to herself like nothing had happened. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the dishwasher door she'd just closed. My brain couldn't let go of the details. The shoes. The cologne. The lipstick. The bathrobe. The too perfect story about Brian. It wasn't just the inconsistencies, it was how prepared she seemed. There wasn't a single stutter in her delivery. No nervous fidgeting. No pause to recalibrate. She had an answer for everything, as if she'd rehearsed the lines in her head and was just waiting for her cue. And me? I played the part of the clueless husband, at least for now. But something had happened in that house. Someone had been here. And whether it was Brian or someone else entirely, it hadn't been just a quick cup of coffee and chat about spreadsheets. I didn't know the full story yet, but I knew a lie when I saw one. I got home earlier than expected. My business trip to Denver was supposed to last until Friday. A big client meeting got scrapped at the last minute, so I hopped the next available flight home Thursday morning without telling anyone. I figured I'd surprise Emily, maybe take her out to dinner or just have a quiet night in. That was the plan, at least. But the moment I stepped into the house, something felt wrong. Not in the catastrophic sense. Nothing broken, no smoke or alarms blaring. But the energy, the vibe was just off. It was subtle, like walking into a room moments after someone's told a lie and everyone's still pretending things are normal. First clue, the shoes. A pair of men's sneakers I didn't recognize were parked by the front door. Brand new Nikes, still bright white, size 11 by the look of them. I'm a size 10 and I don't wear that brand. Emily and I don't host people midweek, let alone unannounced. And if we did have someone over, Emily's the kind of person who would straighten the shoes, not leave them sitting there like that. No jacket. No umbrella. Just shoes. Second clue, the scent. It hit me as I walked down the hallway. Cologne. Expensive stuff, sharp and woody, the kind that lingers. Definitely not mine. I stopped mid-step and took a deeper breath just to be sure. It was faint but unmistakable. Cologne and something else. A faint sweetness, like gum or mint. I followed the trail into the kitchen, half expecting to see someone still there. Empty. Then my eyes landed on the coffee mug in the sink. It had a lipstick-stained bold, cherry red. A perfect print right on the rim. Emily doesn't wear that shade. She never has. Her go-to is a neutral pink or nothing at all. I teased her once about how she always wiped her lips before sipping anything so she wouldn't leave a mark. She said lipstick smudges were messy and juvenile. But this one? It stood out like graffiti on clean marble. My heart started doing the slow, uneasy thud in my chest. I set my suitcase down gently, like making noise might shatter the moment. The place was clean, too clean. No clutter on the counters. Her laptop was closed and off. Candles burned in the living room, eucalyptus and sandalwood and soft jazz hummed through the Bluetooth speaker in the corner. It all felt staged. Like I had just missed something. Or someone. And then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of water turning off upstairs. Footsteps padded across the floor. A door creaked. Then, a few moments later, she appeared. Emily. Wrapped in her white bathrobe, towel twisted around her hair, cheeks slightly flushed like she just stepped out of a steamy shower. She paused when she saw me, eyes wide for a split second, then softened like she'd shifted into a script. Mark, she said, voice lilting with faux surprise. You're home early. Client canceled. Took the morning flight. I forced a small smile, watching her carefully. She stepped lightly down the stairs, tightening her robe belt as she moved. You should have told me, she said. I would have made dinner. Or at least picked up something decent. No big deal, I said, glancing back toward the kitchen. Just figured I'd surprise you. She followed my gaze but didn't stop walking. Oh yeah. You just missed Brian, she said, casually brushing past me toward the sink. He dropped by to talk through some restructuring stuff from the office. We had coffee, then he left. Brian. One of her colleagues. Mid-50s, balding, perpetually awkward. I'd met him once at a holiday party. No way he was rocking a fresh pair of size 11s or wearing designer cologne. But she kept going, as if that name was enough to explain everything. He wanted your opinion on some new software implementation, she added, rinsing the mug. But I told him you were out of town. Guess he figured he'd ask me instead. She didn't flinch when she touched the lipstick-marked mug. Just rinsed it and set it in the dishwasher like it was any other dish. I nodded slowly. That Brian? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Yeah, she replied, grabbing a towel and drying her hands. Why? No reason, I said. She turned to me then, smiling like nothing was out of place. You okay? You look tense. I forced a laugh. Long flight. Didn't sleep much. Well, you're home now. She walked over, rose up on her toes, and kissed me on the cheek. Her lips were bare. No red. No stain. Want a shower? I can throw together something for dinner. I shook my head. Think I'll just grab a drink. She nodded and disappeared upstairs, humming to herself like nothing had happened. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the dishwasher door she'd just closed. My brain couldn't let go of the details. The shoes, the cologne, the lipstick, the bathrobe. The too perfect story about Brian. It wasn't just the inconsistencies, it was how prepared she seemed. There wasn't a single stutter in her delivery. No nervous fidgeting. No pause to recalibrate. She had an answer for everything, as if she'd rehearsed the lines in her head and was just waiting for her cue. And me? I played the part of the clueless husband, at least for now. But something had happened in that house. Someone had been here, and whether it was Brian or someone else entirely, it hadn't been just a quick cup of coffee and chat about spreadsheets. I didn't know the full story yet, but I knew a lie when I saw one. The days that followed weren't dramatic. That's what threw me the most. Emily went about life as if nothing had changed. She cooked, cleaned, checked her email on the couch, asked me about work like usual. No extra sweetness, no awkward silences, no signs of someone who'd nearly been caught in something compromising. She was consistent, which should have made me feel reassured. Didn't. Instead, it made everything feel colder, controlled. I started noticing things I hadn't before. Or maybe I had, but I just wasn't ready to acknowledge them until now. That's the thing about hindsight, it doesn't shout. It whispers, over and over until the puzzle pieces you ignored start clicking into place, one sickening detail at a time. First, the emotional distance. That had been going on for months. Conversations had grown shallow, reduced to dinner planning, work updates, the occasional "how was your day?" but rarely anything deeper. She didn't ask about my business trips anymore. Didn't seem to care whether I landed the new client or lost them. It was like she had slowly untethered herself from our shared life and drifted off to something else, or someone. And then there were the weekend trips. Emily had a childhood friend named Natalie who lived about 2 hours away. About 3 months ago, Emily started visiting her more often, first once a month, then every other weekend. I remember the first time she left after we'd had a big argument about finances. She came back on Sunday night all smiles, like nothing ever happened. I called Natalie once just to check in. She didn't pick up, so I left a casual voicemail. Never got a reply. I never mentioned it to Emily. Now I wish I had. Then there were the bank statements. We've always had a joint account for groceries, gas, household stuff. I handle most of the finances, so I've always kept a casual eye on activity. Around the time Emily's weekend visits started increasing, I noticed more cash withdrawals. Not huge amounts, 50 here, 75 there. Just small enough to avoid suspicion if I weren't looking closely. At first, I assumed she was paying Natalie back for meals or gas. But I checked. Natalie's town was almost entirely card-based. Not many places took cash anymore. I remembered that because Emily had complained about it in the past. So what was the cash for? And why had she recently changed all her passwords? I discovered that one by accident. We were watching a movie one night, and she needed to order food on her phone. She asked me to grab it from the kitchen counter. The app auto-logged out and needed her password. I tried the one I'd always known. Didn't work. Neither did the second guess. When I asked, she brushed it off. "Oh, I've been tightening things up. Too many data breaches lately." Sounded reasonable, except she hadn't changed our shared Netflix or Spotify logins. Just her email, her banking app, and her laptop login. Another puzzle piece clicked into place. Around the same time, her appearance had changed gradually but noticeably. I didn't think much of it back then. She started buying new lingerie, getting waxed more frequently, and wearing perfume again, even around the house. That part one actually liked or thought I did. I complimented her, thinking maybe we were reigniting something. She'd smile, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. She didn't flirt back. Didn't lean in for more. She was dressing up, but not for me. And the S*X or lack thereof said everything. It had become rare, almost mechanical. And when it did happen, there was this distance, like I was reaching for someone who'd already made up her mind to be somewhere else. She used to initiate things, surprise me. Lately, I'd get a quick kiss on the cheek and a "not tonight, I'm exhausted," or "let's just cuddle, okay?" followed by her turning over and scrolling through her phone until she fell asleep. Looking back, I was an idiot. The signs weren't subtle. I had just refused to see them. Love does that to you. It makes you look at a closed door and call it private, not secret. It makes you believe that when someone pulls away, they're just stressed, not straying. And Emily was drifting further by the day. I remember the first time I truly doubted her. It wasn't dramatic. It was a Tuesday morning. I was leaving for work and she was packing for another girls' weekend. She kissed me goodbye, said, "Don't forget to water the succulents," and then turned back to folding her clothes like I was the background noise in her life. That kiss felt hollow. On a hunch, I checked the weather in Natalie's city later that day. Rainy all weekend. Storm warnings. The next morning, I texted Natalie. No response. Emily came back Sunday night wearing sunglasses on an overcast evening, saying she had a headache. She didn't bring back any leftovers like she usually did. Didn't talk much about the trip, just that it was fine and Natalie's going through stuff. That's when I started writing things down. Dates. Excuses. Her clothing choices. Even the way she reacted to small questions. Not because I wanted to catch her. Because I wanted to stop feeling crazy. Gaslighting doesn't have to be active, sometimes it's just someone else pretending so convincingly that you start doubting your instincts. So I started trusting mine. And my instincts told me that the night I came home early, I hadn't just walked into an empty house. I'd walked into the aftermath of something she thought she'd cleaned up. She thought she had time to rinse the cup, straighten the shoes, spray the room. But I beat her clock by 10 minutes. And that shook her. After that night, I started noticing the cover-up patterns more clearly. She was extra nice for 2 days. Asked if I wanted takeout from my favorite place. Mentioned maybe joining me on my next work trip. Asked how I was sleeping. But it wasn't affection, it was damage control. And that told me everything I needed to know. Something was happening. Something had already happened. And now it was up to me to find out just how deep it went. I didn't want to become that guy, the one snooping through receipts, watching shadows, cross-examining his own wife like a suspect. But when trust erodes slow and quiet, your mind starts doing the math all on its own. And mine had been crunching numbers for weeks. The little inconsistencies weren't adding up anymore. Her work dinners kept getting later. Her stories changed mid-sentence. I'd ask a casual question, "How's Brian doing these days?" And she'd flinch ever so slightly, like a performer who forgot her next line. Then there were the calls she'd take in the hallway, her voice lowered to a whisper, always ending with, "Okay, I'll talk to you later." Never who it was. Never why it couldn't happen in the same room as me. But suspicion wasn't proof. And part of me still clung to the hope that I was wrong, that I was misreading everything, seeing betrayal in places where there was only coincidence. I didn't want to believe she was capable of what I feared. Then came the hotel charge. It hit me on a Monday morning while reviewing my business credit card statement. I'd used that card exclusively for work, client dinners, travel, office supplies. But this one-line item stopped me cold. Rosegate Hotel, $247.88. Date, Thursday. The same day I had flown home early. The same day she said Brian stopped by for coffee. That charge should not have been there. I called the hotel pretending to be the cardholder, which I was, and asked about the transaction. The woman on the other end pulled it up with little resistance. Reservation under Emily's name. One night stay. Standard room with late checkout. I held the phone tighter. Can I confirm the check-in time? Let's see. Thursday, 3:42 p.m. Exactly 1 hour before I walked through the front door at home. My chest felt hollow. "Do you have security footage?" I asked, my voice almost steady. "I'm trying to confirm a discrepancy." There was a pause. "Sir, we don't typically release that information without a formal request." "I'm her husband," I said bluntly. "I think she may have been there with someone else." The woman's voice softened. "If you're able to come in, I can show you what we have." That evening, I sat in the manager's office at the Rosegate. He pulled up the footage without hesitation, probably used to moments like this. Probably saw 100 husbands just like me. And there she was. Emily. My wife. Walking into the hotel lobby around 3:40 p.m., arm-linked with a man I'd never seen before. Tall. Athletic. Early 40s. Expensive haircut. Their body language was unmistakable, close, too close. She smiled at him the way she hadn't smiled at me in months. Her hand touched his chest as they stopped at the desk. He leaned in to whisper something. She laughed. I didn't watch anymore. "I've seen enough," I said, my voice thin. The manager nodded and quietly shut the laptop. He didn't offer sympathy. He didn't need to. The silence said it all. I got in my car and just sat there for 10 minutes, hands locked on the steering wheel, watching my breath fog up the windshield. I wasn't sure if I wanted to scream, cry, or drive straight into traffic. But instead, I did something worse. I checked my phone and saw a message from Emily. "Hey, don't be mad. I'm at a friend's place tonight. Just needed a night away to reset. Love you." I stared at the screen, rereading the word love like it was a foreign concept. A punchline in a language I no longer understood. She was at a friend's place. A night to reset. That same night, I'd watched her check into a hotel room with another man. There was nothing left to doubt. No benefit to give. No story that could make this right. I drove home on autopilot, the streetlights flickering past me like a funeral procession. Every corner of our house felt unfamiliar when I stepped inside. Our framed wedding photo on the bookshelf. The throw pillows she'd insisted on buying. The fake succulents she claimed made the place feel alive. It was all set dressing now. A stage built for a performance I no longer believed in. I didn't reply to her message. I didn't call. I didn't confront her when she walked in the next day acting like she'd just had a relaxing girls' night. But that night, after she fell asleep, her phone buzzed. One new message. From a number not saved in her contacts. Just a string of digits and a message that made my skin crawl. Miss you already. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. I didn't open the phone. Didn't need to. That was enough. I stood there in the hallway staring at her as she slept, completely unaware that everything was unraveling. She looked peaceful, content, as if her secrets were just weightless whispers she could shed at will. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. What I felt was grief, deep, immobilizing grief for the version of her I had loved, the version I thought was still somewhere inside her. That person didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never had. Maybe I had built her from the ground up with hope and trust and years of shared life, only to find out the foundation had been hollow all along. The next day, I did what needed to be done. I changed the locks. I called my attorney. I gathered every piece of proof, hotel charges, phone records, calendar inconsistencies, and scanned them into a folder marked divorce. Emily noticed something was different when she came home and her key didn't work. She knocked, confused. I opened the door and didn't say a word. Just handed her an envelope. Inside, a printout of the hotel receipt, a still frame from the footage, and a typed note with 3 lines. I know. Don't come back. She stared at it, her face frozen in place, lips parted like she couldn't decide if she should lie or cry. I can explain, she started. No, I said, my voice calm. You already have. Her eyes glossed over. Mark, please? I made a mistake. I shook my head. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. This was a decision. Repeated, deliberate, and disgusting. For the first time, she didn't have a script. She tried reaching for my hand. I pulled away. You lost the right to touch me when you brought him into our life, I said. She stood there for a while, still clutching the envelope like it was evidence in a case she thought she could still win. But it was over. She left without another word. I closed the door behind her and didn't look back. That was the moment it all collapsed, not just the marriage, but the illusion of who I thought she was. Of who we were. And while I didn't know what came next, I knew one thing. I would never be that blind again. The next morning, it was like she had been erased. Not just gone scrubbed. Like she'd slipped out in the night and taken everything that could tie her to this life with her. The toothbrush was gone. So was the sweater she always left on the kitchen chair. Even the weird herbal tea she used to clutter up the pantry was nowhere to be found. Her presence wasn't just absent, it was deleted. I remember walking into the living room and feeling that eerie stillness. You know that silence that feels too quiet? Where even the air feels staged, like it's waiting for you to notice something's wrong. That was the vibe. Like the house itself was holding its breath. And then I noticed the safe. I don't check it often. We only used it for a handful of important things, insurance docs, some backup drives, our wedding rings, and a few heirlooms from my grandmother. It was built into the wall of the master bedroom closet, tucked behind an old row of coats we never wore. The keypad beeped softly as I punched in the code. It opened without resistance and stared back at me, hollow. Empty. Everything was gone. Not just a few items. Not just a mistake. The flash drives were missing. So was the binder with our business records, the deed to the house, the emergency cash, nearly $4,000 in total. And the family jewelry box. Not flashy stuff, but priceless to me. My mother's locket. A gold bracelet that had been passed down since my great-grandmother. Gone. I stood there for a long time, the door to the safe wide open, a cold rush spreading through my spine. She hadn't just left. She had prepared. This wasn't a breakdown. This was an exit strategy. I checked our shared bank accounts next. More cash withdrawals, 4 of them in the last 2 days. All under $200, just under the radar. Just enough to stay beneath the fraud alerts. One was from a gas station 2 towns over. Another from an ATM in a strip mall I didn't recognize. Then the real good punch came, the backup email account I didn't even know she used, the one that popped up when I reset one of our password alerts. It was hers. And it was full of drafts. Drafts of resignation letters. Drafts of address change confirmations. travel itineraries, even a packing checklist labeled Week 6 Final Redundancy Items. She had been planning this for months. And yet the worst part wasn't what she took. It was what, or rather who, she left behind. Zach. Her son. 17. Technically my stepson, but I'd never called him that. From day one, he called me Mark, not Dad, but we'd had an understanding. We'd been through enough birthdays, school projects, and kitchen table lectures that we felt like family. I wasn't his father, but I wasn't just some guy either. That morning, he came down the stairs slowly, rubbing sleep from his eyes, earbuds dangling from his hoodie. "Where's my mom?" he asked, half yawning, expecting maybe she was out for coffee or on a walk. I didn't answer immediately. I just looked at him, and that was enough. His eyes sharpened, and he sank into a chair. "You serious?" I nodded. He stared at the table. "She left." "She didn't just leave, Zach. She took everything. Documents, backups, cash. The safe's empty." He ran his hand through his hair, cursing softly under his breath. "She said she might go. But I didn't think she'd actually, go. You knew." His mouth twisted. "Not like this. I didn't know she was gonna screw you over. She just kept saying she wanted to get away. Start over. Said the whole life here felt like a trap. I thought she meant a breakup, not a heist. I didn't even realize I was clenching my fists until I felt the dull ache in my palms." "And you didn't say anything?" "I didn't think she meant it," he snapped, then pulled back, deflated. "I mean, she said stuff like that before. About needing space. Needing time. I thought it was just more of that. Not some Ocean's 11 stunt." He stood up and paced the kitchen, clearly rattled. I could see it on his face, the guilt, the confusion, the weird loyalty that came with being her son and still feeling like she'd betrayed him too. After a minute, he pulled something from the inside pocket of his hoodie. "A flash drive. I was gonna delete this," he said, eyes lowered. "But after this morning, I figured you should see it." "What is it?" "Stuff she saved. Emails. Docs. Passwords. She made backups of everything. She said it was just in case. I only found it because she left her old laptop open one day and forgot to close her drafts folder. I copied it, thinking, I don't know, just in case she did something nuts." I took the drive, staring at the tiny piece of plastic like it weighed 100 pounds. "Why didn't you give it to me sooner?" He shrugged, swallowing hard. I didn't want to believe it either. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop in silence. It auto-opened to a folder labeled, "For storage only, do not open." Of course, I opened it. What I found made my stomach turn. It was all there: Excel sheets of passwords and pins, scanned copies of our business documents, cloud login credentials, even notes titled Account Consolidation Strategy and Primary Target Exits. One document was literally titled Transfer Timeline, Final Phase. It read like a blueprint. She hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been building a parallel life, preparing to walk out of this one like it was a lease she could break with 30 days' notice. And now it all made sense: the sudden concern with finances, the fake tension she manufactured so she could justify space, the cold shoulder, the drawn-out goodbye without the decency of an actual farewell. This wasn't abandonment. It was robbery. But here's the part one didn't expect. I wasn't alone. Zach stayed. He didn't pack a bag. Didn't call to meet her. Didn't try to defend her. He stayed. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was shock. Maybe, just maybe, it was because somewhere deep down he knew who had really been there for him these past few years. Who showed up for games. Who paid for his braces. Who helped him with his resume. Me. That afternoon, we sat in the living room in silence. I couldn't bring myself to say anything. The betrayal was too big, too tangled to even touch. But after a while, he looked up and said something that stuck with me. "You're not the bad guy here, Mark." "I know that." I nodded, but I didn't believe it yet. Not then. But I knew one thing for sure: if Emily thought she could vanish without a trace and leave nothing behind but ashes, she was wrong. She left something behind. And he just handed me the key to everything. There's a moment when pain calcifies into purpose. For me, that moment came sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the flash drive Zach had handed me. Betrayal is a strange thing. It starts loud, messy, a storm of shock and rage. But eventually it sharpens. Quiet. Cold. Focused. By the time the sun went down that day, I wasn't asking why anymore. I was asking how to make sure she didn't get away with what she'd done. I didn't call her. Didn't send some long, furious text. What was the point? This wasn't about closure anymore. This was about consequence. The next morning, I made 2 calls. First, to my attorney, an old friend from college named Drew, who'd helped me set up the LLC for my business. He was sharp, discreet, and had zero tolerance for manipulation. The second call was to a private investigator. I didn't want to go scorched earth, but Emily had already done that for me. I just needed to document the ashes. Drew came over that afternoon with his usual leather folder, legal pad, and a look of reluctant sympathy that I appreciated mostly because it wasn't pity. She took the drives, he asked. And the cash, the jewelry, the documents. She's been withdrawing in pieces for weeks. He flipped through the packet I'd assembled, *TS from the drive, ATM records, the hotel receipt, and a still from the security footage. His eyebrows rose, but he said nothing until he hit the note I'd given her the day she came back for answers. I know. Don't come back. He nodded. That's good. That's clear. I expected him to suggest mediation. A calm conversation. Maybe even a mutual arrangement. He didn't. She robbed you, he said flatly. There's no mediation after that. You want me to go after everything? Yes, I said almost too quickly. Okay. He slid his folder shut. You're going to need to be ready for some pushback. When she realizes you're not just walking away, she's going to shift tactics. Tactics? She'll get scared. Fear becomes strategy. She'll play the victim, spin stories. People like her don't apologize, they recast the narrative. He was right. I'd already seen glimpses of it. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. No introduction. Just 3 lines. You left me no choice. I didn't want it to be like this. Please, let's talk. There it was. The beginning of her version. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I had already submitted the full folder to Drew, and within 2 days, the formal petition for divorce and financial restitution had been filed. Theft, fraud, and breach of fiduciary trust were the key terms, legalese for you lied and now you're paying for it. Once her lawyer saw the paperwork, it didn't take long for her team to reach out. I guess they expected I'd be open to some private negotiation. A quiet settlement. A sealed folder. Minimal fuss. I said no. Her lawyer, a polished woman named Amanda with the kind of voice you hear in political ads, called Drew directly. She's willing to return the jewelry, Amanda said. She admits she took it in haste. It was an emotional moment. Haste? Drew repeated. There was a 17-item packing checklist. That's not haste. That's intention. Let's keep this civil, Amanda said. We'll keep it factual, Drew replied. I respected the hell out of him for that. Meanwhile, the private investigator I'd hired, a guy named Callan, worked fast. By the end of the week, he had tracked Emily's movements through hotel bookings, car rentals, and 2 burner email accounts she hadn't even used from home. And then he found it. The affair hadn't been a fling with a stranger. It was with someone from her firm. A colleague. A senior manager named Anthony McAllister. Married. Of course. Callan pulled footage of the 2 of them together, business dinners turned weekend escapes. Rental cabins 2 counties over. Conferences where she hadn't registered under her own name. I had a growing stack of digital evidence so damning it read like a script for a courtroom drama. Then came the kicker. Anthony's wife, who I didn't even know existed, had already filed for divorce. She cited infidelity and included Emily's name in her initial complaint. Apparently, she'd seen some of the same emails. She had receipts of hotel bookings charged to a shared credit card. She'd been playing her own quiet game of chess and beat me to checkmate. When Drew saw the cross-filing, he smirked. Looks like the walls are closing in. They were. And fast. I could feel it too, the shift in Emily's tone. The next message from her was no longer sad or vague. It was desperate. Please don't let this ruin everything. I didn't take anything valuable. I just panicked. You're making this worse than it is. Panicked? That's what she called a calculated financial extraction and a secret affair with a married coworker? Drew drafted a counterstatement. We were no longer asking for just restitution. We were demanding full return of all missing funds, acknowledgement of breach of contract for business documents she'd taken, and coverage of legal costs. In short, every bridge she'd torched, we were making her rebuild. She tried to negotiate. First through Amanda. Then through text. Then with a letter delivered in person, not to me but to Zach. It was handwritten, 6 pages long. Half apology, half manipulation. She said she missed him. That she wanted to see him. That I had poisoned him against her. She said she didn't mean to leave him behind, she just needed to protect her own peace. Zach read it once. Then handed it to me. Want me to throw it out? I asked. No, he said. Let's keep it. Might be useful later. That was the moment I realized something had changed in him too. He wasn't just surviving this. He was watching it play out with clear eyes. And even through all the chaos, that realization meant something. The woman who walked out on us hadn't just underestimated me. She'd underestimated her own son. The legal process moved faster than I expected. There's a strange kind of rhythm to it, motions, countermotions, filings, delays. But when you have the receipts, things pick up speed. Emily's legal team tried to propose a partial settlement again. Return the jewelry, apologize for the money, agree to restructure shared assets. Keep it off public record. That was the goal, minimize exposure. Protect her image. But that ship had sailed. I declined. Politely. Firmly. The discovery process exposed more than either of us anticipated: off-the-books accounts she'd opened under her maiden name, fake invoices billed through the firm's reimbursement system, and one email chain where she openly discussed quitting after bleeding the account dry. It wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. And finally, she cracked. The last message she sent me came on a Tuesday morning. "You win. Just tell me what you want." I didn't reply. Because by then it wasn't about what I wanted. It was about what she'd already lost. Her marriage. Her reputation. Her career. Her son. All of it gone, not because I was cruel. Not because I went hunting for vengeance. But because she thought she could play this game and leave no fingerprints. And now she was watching the consequences unfold in slow, methodical waves. Sometimes justice doesn't come with a bang. It comes with a paper trail. And hers was just beginning. In the wreckage Emily left behind, something unexpected began to grow. The house was quieter but not empty. Zach and Liv, my stepdaughter from my first marriage, started spending more time together. At first, it was subtle, shared chores, late-night talks in the kitchen, helping each other study. I figured it was just emotional fallout. But then I noticed how they looked at each other. Not awkward, not unsure, just honest. Respectful. They didn't rush to define it, and I didn't push. They were two young people who'd been hurt by the same person and found comfort in each other. When they eventually told me they were in love, it didn't shock me. It felt natural, like healing. There was no drama, no judgment. Just two hearts learning to trust again. In the strangest way, the family Emily fractured had begun and quietly piecing itself back together without her. The court ruling was final. Emily was ordered to repay every dollar, return all stolen property, and cover legal costs. Her lover? Long gone, he ran back to his wife when the fallout hit. Emily lost everything she tried to manipulate: her image, her job, even her son. Meanwhile, life here moved forward. Liv and Zach helped rebuild the business. Liv handled logistics, Zach modernized the digital side. They were a force together, balanced and thoughtful. A year later, they stood in the backyard, exchanging vows beneath the oak tree. I walked Liv down the aisle, proud and calm. No bitterness. Just peace. We didn't talk about Emily anymore. She became a footnote, an ending that made room for a better beginning. Some families are chosen. Ours was forged in fire and made stronger because of it. For the first time in a long while, we were whole.